All right, welcome back. We've got a really fantastic deep dive for you today. Looking at a source that's, well, incredibly old, over 2,500 years, but still teaches maybe the most potent lesson in modern influence.
Yeah, definitely. We are breaking down Aesop's classic, super concise fable, The Wind and the Sun.
Mm. And you shared this source with us because, well, you want a shortcut to understanding what real strength looks like, the kind that moves people without resorting to force.
Right.
So our mission today is basically to pull out that foundational wisdom about persuasion, showing exactly why patience and calm can be much better strategies than anger or just brute power.
And this is so crucial because, look, the story itself is simple, right? But the moral underneath it, that's like a masterclass in human behavior.
Yeah.
A lot of people might just think, oh, fables, they're just kids' stories. But this one, it's practically a foundational text on behavioral science and like strategic influence.
I like it.
It just gets right to the heart of what makes people cooperate versus, dig their heels in and resist.
I really like that framing. It's not just about being nice, is it? It's actually about being effective.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Maybe start with the original argument. The big disagreement way up high between these two forces of nature.
Yeah, okay. So the scene is set high up in the sky, and the wind and the sun, they're having this fierce argument, each one totally convinced they're the most powerful.
And the wind was really boastful, wasn't he? The text paints him as loud, aggressive, defining his strength by what he could dominate.
Totally.
He could bend huge trees, rip leaves off branches, whip the seas up into these terrifying storms. For the wind, power meant visible destruction, domination, you could see.
Right, measurable force. But the sun, well, the sun was the complete opposite, just steady, calm, offering this quiet counterpoint. He wasn't really denying the wind's raw power, but he was suggesting that his light and warmth, that was a fundamentally different kind of strength, and ultimately a more effective one than any storm.
Okay, so they needed a test, a practical test. And down below, there's this traveler walking alone on a dusty road. He's bundled up, it's chilly, wearing a heavy cloak.
Right. And the challenge was pretty simple, actually quite elegant. Whoever could make that traveler voluntarily take off his cloak, well, they'd prove they were the stronger one. And the wind, full of swagger, totally confident in his usual methods, he went first.
Of course he did.
He decided, right, I'll prove my strength through just overwhelming force. So he blew with absolutely everything he had. Just imagine the chaos, right? The air's roaring.
Yeah, the traveler's hair whipping around, the dust flying.
The whole world basically fighting against him.
And what was the immediate reaction from the man? The instinctive thing?
Pure resistance. It's automatic. The wind's aggression, it just triggered that basic human defense mechanism.
Right.
The harder the wind hit him, the tighter the traveler clutched that cloak, like gripping it with both hands. Yeah. He wasn't just cold now. He was actively fighting the coercion.
Yeah, pushing back against being pushed.
And this is like the core insight into why it failed. Right here.
Oh.
The wind's effort, yeah, it was impressive in terms of raw energy, but it was completely counterproductive.
Totally.
The traveler wasn't motivated to take the cloak off. He was psychologically forced to keep it on.
Yeah.
So the wind raged, got furious, blew harder and harder.
Yeah.
But all he did was exhaust himself.
Yeah.
And finally, he just gave up, totally defeated by a guy holding onto a piece of cloth.
It's almost funny, isn't it, how quickly that brute force approach just fizzled out.
Yeah.
And then the sun steps up.
And the contrast is just everything. There's no noise, no struggle. The sun just started to shine.
Gently.
Slowly, steadily. Those rays of light just spread gently, bathing the traveler in this warmth.
And the man who just moments before was basically fighting for his life against this gale.
Yeah.
He feels that familiar, pleasant warmth on his skin. He slows down his walking, wipes a bit of sweat off his forehead, and finally, not because he was forced, not at all, but because his own internal state, his comfort, demanded it. He smiles, kind of relieved, and just willingly takes off the heavy cloak.
Folds it up, walks on unburdened.
Yeah.
And the wind just watched. Silent, surprised. The sun got the exact result they wanted, cloak off without any destructive energy, without facing any resistance at all.
Right.
The sun won, not by forcing the action, but by strategically creating the internal conditions that made the action feel, well, inevitable and voluntary.
Okay. This is where we really need to drill down into the analysis. The core moral, we say, is gentleness and kindness achieve more than anger and force. But, like you said, that sounds maybe a bit too simple. You mentioned behavioral science earlier. What's the actual concept here explaining why the wind failed so badly?
Okay, so it's basically psychological reactance. It's a really powerful human trait, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. When people feel like some external force is trying to limit their freedom or their autonomy, could be a hurricane, could be a demanding boss, could be, a pushy ad, their immediate, often subconscious reaction is to push back, to reassert control.
Oh, okay.
So the traveler wasn't just physically clutching his cloak, he was psychologically reacting against the wind, trying to force him.
So the wind's sheer power actually became the biggest hurdle to its own goal because it triggered that reactant?
Exactly. Precisely. Now, contrast that with the sun. The sun wasn't imposing anything, it was just changing the environment.
Right.
The traveler didn't feel forced at all. He took off the cloak because it became his idea, driven by his own internal comfort.
Mm-hmm.
The sun successfully, kind of, recalibrated the traveler's internal cost-benefit analysis. Suddenly, keeping the cloak on felt costly, sweaty, overheating.
Not comfortable.
Whereas taking it off offered immediate relief.
Comfort.
Nice temperature. And that is the power of what we call perceived autonomy. The sun let the traveler feel like he was making his own choice.
That makes it so much more applicable, doesn't it? But hang on, let me just push back on this idea of pure gentleness for a second.
Okay.
Doesn't that sound a bit passive? Like sometimes, in a tough negotiation or a really critical moment, you do need assertiveness, right? Where's the line? Isn't persistence also a strength? Sometimes don't you need a bit of the wind's force just to break through inertia?
That's a really critical question.
Yeah.
And the line isn't between force and weakness, I don't think. It's more between coercion and influence.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Coercion versus influence.
Yeah. Look, the sun wasn't passive. The sun was incredibly persistent, steady, focused. Its influence is a form of powerful, sustained assertiveness, but it's one that minimizes emotional friction.
Okay.
The wind's way fails because it adds all that emotional friction. It demands immediate compliance. If you need to break inertia, you don't necessarily need loud rage.
Yeah.
Maybe you need strategic warmth that melts the existing resistance gently.
That shift from rage to strategic warmth, that feels like the key takeaway, especially for professionals listening.
Absolutely.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, maybe leadership in the workplace, the lesson seems really immediate, actionable, totally.
Yeah.
Think about it. If you're a manager and you use the win style, boastful, loud, demanding compliance, making sudden, rigid demands, you're basically forcing your team to clutch their cloaks tightly,
Right.
metaphorically speaking.
Yeah. They might look compliant on the surface, but internally. They're defensive, resistant. They're probably only giving the bare minimum effort required. They're working under duress, not real commitment.
Yeah, I can picture that. Think about a difficult performance review. The win style manager just dives straight into the criticism and immediately puts the other person on the defensive.
Instantly. Whereas the sun-like leader, they start by reducing that emotional friction.
Yeah.
They might acknowledge how tough the task was, focus on shared goals first, create a kind of psychologically safe space
Right.
where the employee actually chooses to talk about the failures because the environment feels warm enough, safe enough to handle that vulnerability.
Okay, so the sun leader gets voluntary cooperation and maybe, as you said, higher quality productivity.
Yes, that's crucial. You don't just get compliance, you get actual buy-in. People don't just work hard because they're forced to obey. They work hard because the sun has created conditions where success feels relieving, rewarding. It feels like the desired outcome for their own internal comfort and goals.
And this translates directly into schools, too, right? Academic environments. That's relevant for a lot of our listeners.
Oh, absolutely. If a teacher or maybe a mentor relies only on force, like rigid demands, maybe public shaming, using anger to drive results, they might get temporary compliance. Kids do the homework just to avoid getting yelled at.
Sure. Short-term fix.
But they're not really fostering genuine learning, are they?
Yeah.
True intellectual curiosity that's nurtured by gentleness, which looks like patient guidance, clear communication, a calm approach.
Yeah.
That gentleness encourages students to take intellectual risks, ask those challenging questions, participate willingly.
Yeah.
Because they're not, paralyzed by the fear of the wind's harsh blow.
It really highlights that the goal isn't just getting the cloak off, is it?
No.
The goal is making the traveler feel good about taking it off, that voluntary action, with the smile of relief that's infinitely more lasting, more durable than just forced compliance.
And when we talk about applying this, maybe the clearest, most immediate place we see this contrast is often when we mentor or teach younger people.
Yeah, good point.
This fable is such a perfect tool for parents, guardians, teachers, because that contrast between, furious exhaustion on one side and calm effectiveness on the other is just so stark, so clear.
Okay, so let me offer some practical advice maybe on how to use this story. If you're sharing this with a kid, maybe focus really heavily on the sensory stuff, the emotional contrast.
Yeah, don't just state the moral, like, flatly.
Yeah.
Ask them, how did the traveler actually feel when the wind was blowing?
Right.
What was the experience?
Yeah. He was shivering, maybe angry, definitely exhausted. And then how did he feel when the sun came out? Pleasant, relaxed, relieved. Get them to connect with those feelings. And that opens up a much richer conversation, doesn't it? You can ask them, what makes people want to cooperate with you versus what makes them want to resist?
Right.
You know, if you yell at your brother or sister, are they going to want to share their toy? Probably not. They're going to clutch it tighter, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like the traveler with the cloak.
But if you wait, maybe offer a warm alternative, invite them to play together. You create the conditions for them to want to share. You create willingness.
It's also really important, I think, to emphasize the cost to the aggressor. Point out that the wind ended up furious, totally exhausted, and ultimately defeated.
Right.
He spent a huge amount of destructive energy for nothing.
Yeah, that's a great point. Whereas the sun achieved total victory through patience, efficiency even. It shows that the gentle path, the patient, persuasive path, is often way less draining for everyone involved, including the person trying to influence. It's like the energy-saving approach to getting things done.
And just think for a moment about where you might be using the wind's strategy right now in your own life.
Yeah.
Are you yelling at the traffic?
Guilty sometimes.
Right. Or maybe demanding an immediate answer from a difficult client. That fury, that exhaustion, it isn't just external, it's actually hurting your own mental state, maybe even your physical state. The sun's approach, yeah, it might require waiting, a bit of patience. But it conserves your strength and likely guarantees a much better, more sustainable outcome.
So wrapping this up, what does this all really mean for us today? I think our deep dive into Aesop really confirmed that the true measure of strength isn't about domination or command. It's that quiet, persistent, and actually highly strategic power to gently persuade. It's influence without all the friction.
Yeah.
And maybe your final takeaway is this. Every interaction you have, pretty much every day, is a choice. Are you going to be the wind or are you going to be the sun? Just remember that image. The traveler wiping his forehead, smiling, willingly taking off his cloak. Before your next difficult moment, maybe it's with a colleague, a client, your kid, just pause for a second. Ask yourself, am I just cranking up the heat and inviting them to willingly disarm? Or am I creating this gale force that basically guarantees resistance and exhaustion for everyone? The power to change the temperature really is the power to change the outcome.
Well said.
Thank you for sharing your sources for this deep dive into, wow, 2,500 years of quiet strategic wisdom. Really good stuff. We'll catch you next time.